I've been keeping bees since I was 8 years old, so about 20, 21 years. And right now I have roughly 100 hives. I'll hope to expand that to next year, maybe get up to 150, 200. We'll just see how it goes. So yeah, that's kind of where I stand at now. I've given plenty of talks before, and I've gone to several different meetings. I used to work for Kelly Beekeeping as their apicultural specialist, but I've recently resigned from that in order to approach something on my own, mainly pertaining to bees. I'd like to get into honey production as well as selling bees themselves. So anyways, Friday the 13th really took a toll on me because I had made a presentation last night, and I guess I didn't save it or something, maybe, not too sure. But anyways, I do have this, and I do want to give a little talk about biology and behavior of bees. Now, how many in here already has bees? Okay, excellent, excellent. How many of you that raised your hands have been keeping bees for more than 2 years? Okay, just a few. Okay, so everybody in here is brand new or relatively new. So anyways, that's good to know. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to interrupt me. Raise your hands, ask questions. I do not mind, not one bit. So, and another thing. Whenever I start these talks, I always want to say that if you ask 10 different beekeepers a question, you're going to have 10 or 15 different answers. That is the God-honest truth. I always like to say that because, you might hear another speaker that he might do something or a procedure way differently than I do. So it's really whatever works for you. So anyways, let's go ahead and get started here. So where do honeybees come from? Bees, they have an ancestry from wasp. There are 4 species from Asia. There's 1 species from Europe and Africa. This is called Apis mellifera. Now that is the scientific name for the honeybees that we keep. Okay? So they were brought over here into the U.S. in the early 17th century. So did you know that? Bees are not native to North America. The bees that we keep, they were brought over here. Okay? So as settlers came from Europe to here, not only did they bring bees, but they also brought all the different fruits and vegetables that we eat. In essence, so since they brought that, they had to bring the pollinators with them. Kind of jumping into how bees, their life cycle. It starts with an egg. They do have a complete life cycle or complete metamorphosis, if you want to get technical about it. It starts with an egg. Okay, this egg can barely be seen. Normally, whenever I hold up a frame, I like to take the sun, put it on my back, and hold the frame out like this. And I have to have the sunlight shine in the bottom of that cell so I can be able to see it. The egg is very small, but you can see the egg if you look hard enough. The egg then hatches into a larva. Okay, and that's what this is. The larva is a white, ugly grub worm looking deal, and this is very similar to the caterpillar. Everybody's heard of the caterpillar story. You have a caterpillar, and then it will spin a cocoon, and then it will emerge as a butterfly. So it's the same concept with bees here. We have egg, hatches into a larva, and then we got the pupa stage. Now, in this stage, what happens is metamorphosis takes place. You have the larva and is about to transform into an adult honeybee. So what the bees do is they will put a cap over that cell. Okay? They cap that cell, and this is the cocoon stage. And metamorphosis takes place, so it goes from a larva to this, and to an adult honeybee, which is what we normally see. Pretty neat. Another thing I do want to note, a lot of beekeepers refer to this stage as capped brood. Okay, so you'll probably hear that quite often. Now, talk about each one of these. Bees are divided into 3 groups, so to speak, within the colony. which the colony, as you know, is the whole hive. There's workers, there's drones, there's queens. Workers, which make up the majority of the population, it takes them 21 days from egg to finish. So 21-day reproduction. In the summertime, they can live 5 to 6 weeks. That seems like a really short period. But they literally wear themselves out from working so much. Their wings give out, and that is roughly their lifespan. Now, since we have winter is coming on, those bees will be in the hive all winter long. So their lifespan dramatically increases during the wintertime. But anyways, workers, they perform all the duties, all the work duties within the hive. They clean the cells, they feed the young, they groom the queen, they forage, they bring in nectar and pollen. They guard the hive. Now, let's talk about this. Drones. Drones are the males in the hive, okay? And this is, whenever I was in college, I did many talks on bees, and when we kind of talked about the drones, I could always hear people laughing in the background whenever I go to describe the drones and what they do. Drones don't do any work in the hive, okay? They only have one purpose, and that is to mate with the queen. They don't forage. They're a lot of times they're so lazy, in fact, that the workers will feed them. So again, it sounds like a wonderful scenario for us guys, but this time of the year, this is the females do get their revenge. In order to conserve food stores for winter, the workers, they kick the drones out. You know, they don't. There won't be any queen rearing or reproduction of a queen going on in the wintertime. So there's really no need for the guys. So they just kick them out. And most of the time, if the drones refuse to leave the hive, they will, chew on their wings a bit and then pack them a few 100 feet away. And they're doomed. They can't walk back. They can't fly back. So they're doomed. I also want to note that drones take 24 days. Okay, so they take 3 days longer to go from egg to finish than a worker. That's going to be important to note, especially when you start learning about varroa mites and their reproduction cycle. Varroa mites love drones, drone brood, because of that. So anyways, now finally, queens. Oh, by the way, a typical colony ranges 50, 60,000 bees. Drones, the drone population, it could be 300 to 1,500, maybe even 2,000, so it's dramatically smaller. There is, though, one queen, okay? The queen does all of the egg laying. That's what she does. She lays eggs. That is her sole purpose in life. The queen will lay 1,000 to 2,000 eggs per day. So she is if you have a good, young, well-mated queen, she's an egg-laying machine, okay? She can live up to 3 to 4 years. However, most beekeepers will requeen every 2 years. I know a bunch of commercial guys, they requeen every single year. She only mates once. Now this is kind of going back to what we were talking about earlier with the drones, but she only mates one time. And so let me kind of explain that a little bit. When the queen hatches, which by the way, these are called queen cells. And notice, remember I said a worker takes 21 days, a drone takes 24. A queen only takes 16 days. So from egg to finish for a queen is only 16 days. And a queen is royalty, of course, so she gets her own special cell. This is called a queen cell. Okay, after 16 days, the queen will hatch. We then call this a virgin queen. Okay, the next 2 weeks that she has, once she emerges, the next 2 weeks she will go on mating flights. So she mates in the air. Now this is really interesting and quite peculiar. She will leave the hive. She'll travel about a mile or so, and hopefully there will be drones in the air. She flies past the drones. The drones see her. The drones have large eyes, and that's so they can spot the queen. They take off after her. The one that chases her gets to mate with her. The queen will mate with 10 to 15 drones over the period of 2 weeks or so. After that, she will never mate again, and she will be capable of laying hundreds of thousands of eggs. Okay? Of course, we've already talked about that. Now, swarming. How many of you have seen a swarm? Good. All right, excellent. How many of you have caught a swarm? Okay, a few more hands. Catching a swarm is awesome. Not mainly because it's free bees. Everybody loves that. It's free, right? Okay, but why do bees swarm? Okay, and what is swarming? Swarming is nature's way of taking one hive and making it into two. So this typically happens in the spring when the heavy nectar flow is on. The hive will be taking in all this nectar. The population is soaring. There's an abundance of bees, nectar, and pollen. It is at that point that the hive will decide that it needs to swarm. It will then create queens. And then before these new queens hatch, or queen, the old queen will leave the hive and take half the amount of workers. She will leave the hive. She might go a few feet. She might go a mile. And hopefully, in a perfect world, once she gets tired, she'll land on a branch about shoulder height, easy to get to. But that normally never happens. Normally never happens. She's usually about 20, 40 feet up or in something, or inside of a wall of a house, or somewhere difficult to get to. But once that queen gets tired, all the workers, or the other half of the colony that is following her, they'll get on top of her, and that's where you get that big ball of bees, okay, that we see. This is what we call a swarm. At that time, the swarm will issue scouts. The scouts will leave the swarm. They will go and search for a suitable location to set up shop, to find a new home. Okay, that new home, it could be the inside of your house, inside of a doghouse, a mailbox. It could be anywhere. It could be in a hollowed out tree. Anywhere that is, what am I trying to say? It's not exposed to the weather, to the elements. Bees can set up shop and make a home, make a hive. Okay. When do they swarm? Again, they swarm mainly in the spring. However, there are some occasions where a colony will issue a swarm later in the year, late summer, early fall. We call these suicide swarms because more likely, if we are not around, definitely, more likely they will die. So we call those suicide swarms. Catching swarms. I've caught swarms everywhere. I've caught dozens and probably 100 swarms. There's no telling how many I've caught. I've caught them everywhere. I've caught them in trees. I've caught them in shrubs. I've caught them. There was one time they were on the side of a car. A couple of years ago, I got a call from Walmart, and there was a large swarm on the side of a shopping cart. So they can literally stop anywhere. I think my more notable swarm catching was I was about 10 years old at the time, and my mentor, who was in his 70s, we caught a swarm 100 feet in the air on the side of a smokestack at an aluminum smelter plant. My mother wasn't happy about that. But we did catch the swarm, and he let me keep it. So that's good. Catching swarms, it's a blast. If it is up in a tree and you don't want to take your heavy wooden beehive all the way up there, you can use a box. I've used a shoe box. There was one time where I used a McDonald's paper bag. I caught the swarm, put them in the bag, ran down the ladder, dumped them in the hive. There you go, okay? So a little ingenuity can go a long way. So, remember I told you about the queen going on the mating flights and everything? The fertilized eggs become females. The unfertilized eggs become males. So yeah, in theory, the queen determines the gender of her offspring. Pretty neat. Another thing, so we got the fertilized eggs over here. They're going to be females. Now, a queen is a female and a worker is a female. So what's the diff, right? The difference is that once they're in this stage right here, the larva stage, they're fed a different diet. So this larva might be fed what we call bee bread. It will become a worker. This larva will be fed a special diet of royal jelly. Okay? It will be fed nothing but royal jelly. Okay? What happens is that will become a queen. A queen is a highly modified worker in essence. Okay? So, to answer your question, once they decide that they want to make some new queens, they just go to the last egg that the queen had laid and they start feeding that larva royal jelly. Everybody kind of understand that, kind of grasp that? Good. And that's also in the case, say the queen happens to die, or she's just old and wore out and the bees don't like her, the bees will make a new queen. Okay? We call that term, there's a term for that, it's called supersedure. And it happens. The bees don't like the queen that they have, so they raise a new queen, and then they will kill off the old queen. Okay? A colony, we call this a superorganism. It's not just individual workers. Everybody is working for the benefit of the colony, for the benefit of the whole hive. The queen, you're going through the hive, you accidentally bump the queen, you break a leg or something or whatever. They don't like that. So they want a nice healthy queen, so they supersede her. Normally, if you look inside of a hive, say you have you're in your second year of beekeeping, and you already have a fully established colony. You go out there and you look in it one day, and you see all these queen cells. You see 8, 10, 15, 20 queen cells. That's a likely sign that they're about to swarm. Okay, if you see that, your hive's going to swarm. There's not too much you can do. Okay, to answer your question though, sometimes a queen will emerge, and most of the time that queen will go to all the queen cells and kill off the queens before they emerge out. But sometimes the multiple queens will emerge, and yes, they will fight, and the stronger survives. How do you keep them from swarming? The easiest thing to do is provide enough space. Okay. One thing that I've noticed is making room in the brood chamber. Okay. Me personally, I operate 2 hive bodies. Okay. I run 2 hive bodies per hive. Those two hive bodies, or deeps, is where the queen's going to be doing all the egg production. Okay. That's where all the reproduction is going to be taking place. If you let's say you make a split. You take 3 or 4 frames of brood out of there. You put some brand new frames in there or some empty comb. Okay? Those bees are going to see that, oh, wow, look, we got plenty of space. We don't need to swarm. The bees will orient the brood in the center. Okay? That way they can keep a better grasp on the temperature, because that brood is temperature sensitive. And once you have the brood area, then above the brood area is where they will be storing the honey. Okay, but yeah, it's not uncommon to pull out a frame of brood or a frame of eggs, and to notice there's some stores of honey in the top corners. The females do sting. The drones do not have a stinger. Okay, so if you want to play a trick on somebody, get you a couple of drones, throw it at them. We did that quite often. But yes, the females do sting. They will die shortly after. Okay, and the reason why they die is because they literally pull out their stinger and, some other entrails as well. That sounds kind of gross, but notice, there's the stinger right there. This right here, that is the venom sac and a muscle. So what happens is when that bee stings you, the stinger has barbs on it. So that's why it can't pull it out. The venom sac has a muscle attached to it, and when it's pulled out, the muscle is kind of spasming. And what that's doing, it's pumping more venom into you. So the quicker you get that stinger out of you, the less it's going to hurt. When you pinch the stinger, you just pumped all the venom into you. Take your fingernail or your hive tool, okay? Scrape it out, okay? Scrape it out. I do have a Facebook page. The name of my farm, my business, or my beekeeping endeavor or whatnot, it's called St. Raphael Farms. If you'd like to get on there and like that, I'd appreciate that. Probably not this year, but in the years to come, I do plan on doing quite a bit of queen rearing as well as nuke cells, okay? And I do like to come visit Nashville. So, interesting enough, whenever the females, whenever they first emerge, their life is already planned out, okay? If you have any kids, tell them that, right? As soon as they emerge, they go right to work, okay? So it's already planned out. So some of the first tests that these workers are going to do is they're going to be doing cell cleaning. They're going to be feeding the young brood, okay? They're going to be packing out dead bees and stuff like that. Just kind of, cleaning up. Might take care of some of them will probably take care of the queen and feed her and feed each other and whatnot. Then, as they get older, their wax glands develop and they start producing wax and building comb. After that, they'll be taking in nectar from the foragers, which the foragers are at the end. But anyways, they will progress from then. They will be going into guard duty. So these bees are the ones that hang out at the entrance. And at the end of the worker's life, they will become foragers. Now, foragers, that is at the end of the worker's life. They are the ones that go out into the environment. They gather nectar, they gather pollen, and they bring it back to the hive. Okay, once they bring that nectar back to the hive, they pass it to one of the house bees, and that house bee will take the nectar and go store it. The reason why they do that, it's more of an efficiency aspect. The foragers, they're busy. They don't want to have to go inside the hive, navigate, go all the way to the top, dump their load, and then so forth. So as soon as they enter the hive, there's bees right there waiting to meet them, to take their nectar, and then they will go and place it inside the hive. So, and that is pretty much the life of a worker. And it's already planned out, and it will go most of the time. It will go similarly in that order. The bees, they will if they discover a large amount of flowers or a large nectar source, the bees will come back or one of the bees will come back and does this dance. Now this dance, it goes in a half a circle up the middle. They will wag and vibrate. Come back around and do the same thing, okay? So it's like a circle, and then they come up the middle, and they vibrate. It tells the other bees within a couple feet of where this large quantity of flowers is. And bees, they'll go a 2 to 3 mile radius from their hive to forage. Bees have a long tongue, and this tongue, it's called a proboscis. That's the technical name for it. We'll just call it it's like a straw-like tongue. So, when they're in search of this nectar, say they stumble upon a flower, this long proboscis comes out, and then they will stick it inside the flower. And at the base of the flower, that is where these nectaries, that's what it's called, or where the nectar is. And they just simply suck it out. It doesn't go to their stomach, but it does go to a crop. Okay, it's similar to a stomach, but it's just a storage compartment inside of them. Okay. Speaking of nectar, did you know that whenever bees first gather nectar, that nectar is 80% water, give or take. It's 80% water. The bees have to dehydrate that nectar, what I mean is remove the moisture. Once it reaches 18%, then it is called honey. Okay? Another thing and the reason why humans cannot there's no such thing as man-made honey. The reason why is because once they suck that nectar into their crop, there's enzymes that break it down. Okay? Nectar is a complex sugar, somewhat. That inside the crop, the enzymes from the bee break it down into a simple sugar. Okay? That's why mankind cannot make honey. Only bees can. Propolis is that wonderful substance, and it's the sole reason why we have to have a hive tool. Propolis is made from wax. It's also probably has a little bit of pollen and honey in it, but it also has tree sap in it. Okay, the bees literally coat everything inside their hive with propolis. Now, why do they do that? Propolis is antibacterial, it's antifungal, it's antimicrobial, it's anti-everything. The bees cover the inside of their hive with this propolis for the sheer reason it's a barrier in defense against viruses and diseases. Okay? If you've ever seen, and I've seen this firsthand, there was a mouse that had died inside of the hive. It was at the bottom board. Of course, a mouse is too big for the bees to pack out, so what do? They covered it with propolis. Okay? That's what happens. They cover everything with propolis. Okay, so killer bees, or Africanized bees, they're identical to the bees that we keep. Okay? They are Apis mellifera, or mellifera, however you want to pronounce it. If you're from the west, it's mellifera. If you're from the east, it's mellifera. Okay, so whichever. But anyways, they're just a lot more aggressive. There's not much difference in them, but they're extremely, extremely aggressive. They are not in this area. They are mainly in the southern part of Florida, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Southern California, that area. Are they a cause for concern? I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of beekeepers that actually keep Africanized bees. Okay, they just really suit up. Yeah, they're very aggressive. I've talked to one individual who said that once you get done working bees, you can walk for 2 miles and you'll still have bees all over you. If you ever get time, do a little bit of research on the almond pollination. A lot of people don't know, but California attests to 80% of the world's demand for almonds. I believe there is close to or around 800,000 acres of almonds in California, and almonds have to be pollinated by honeybees. They recommend 2 hives per acre. So whenever the almonds bloom, which is usually in February, early parts of March, 1.6 million colonies have to be trucked out to California. Okay, it's really something to see. I've always wanted to go out there and look at it, but I've seen plenty of pictures and videos. It's really an awesome sight. Each state is different. I know Kentucky, you're supposed to have, if you want to transport them, say I'm in Kentucky and I want to transport them to Florida, I have to have my bee inspector of my state come and inspect that and give me a certificate saying that these bees are healthy, there's no American foul brood or any kind of crazy disease or pest in them. Okay? Each state is different. So you'll have to, if you're thinking about doing something, definitely check with your local state agriculture agency. Screen bottom boards, solid bottom boards. The screen bottom boards, they'll cost a little bit more, but they do provide a lot more ventilation, so that will definitely help out. Now that I'm getting more and more hives, cost is coming to effect, so now I'm probably going to be running quite a bit of solid bottom boards. Another thing that helps out is one of my mentors, he's in his 80s now, and he's retired from beekeeping. He had at one point 1,600 colonies, and it was in Florida. He would he'd find a stick or something on the ground, he'd lift the top, and he'd put the stick right there and kind of hold the top up a little bit. That was his ventilation. Okay? I mean, there's a lot of, shortcuts you can take. There's also a lot of other products you can buy as well to help with ventilation. But again, it's really up to you. I would recommend, though, once you get your bees are established that first year, your second year, you're ready to make some honey, you already have your colony established, put on more supers than what you need. Don't just put one super one, put 2 or 3 on there, okay? Remember, that nectar is 80%. When they dehydrate it to make honey, it's going to be 18%, okay? That means 62% of that is going to be evaporated. Thank you.